very good question. You know, everything until then is coming from the Torah. So there's everywhere that is going to be the next leader of the country. You know, what people are not talking about is that Mashiach is actually the next leader in the movement. And if people put in even the tiniest fraction of effort to campaign to Hashem, to Mashiach, it really definitely happen.
Well, first of all, I get very profound what you're saying there. What do you think the effort looks like in terms of the presidential campaign? And what would it look like for people to campaign for Hashem, essentially?
Make rallies, gather people together, so that even just gather following online and just have people know about it. Most people have no idea what Mashiach is. So even just spreading the idea of Mashiach, that itself could be enough.
What is the idea of Mashiach?
Mashiach is a person, a king, who is descended from King David, who will restore the kingdom of King David to its former glory, and he will be one king for the whole world, and the knowledge of Hashem through him will fill all of the earth. And because of that knowledge of Hashem that will fill the earth, there will be no more there will be no more war, no more strife, no more hunger, and all the world's problems will be solved forever. And there will be eternal physical life in this world, great abundance, no issues, and we'll be free to learn Hashem's wisdom and grasp the Creator according to human capabilities.
So I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but if, let's say, somebody was running for president, they were saying, they're not going to talk about the economy, they're not going to talk about whatever it is that they wanted to talk about in the debate, but they're going to say that they're offering everlasting life in the physical body, and they're going to rule the entire world, and what were some of the other things, and that everyone's going to just hang out and get along. Do you think that campaign speech would work?
Well, if someone's campaigning for themselves, it probably wouldn't work. We're saying we're campaigning to Hashem to send Mashiach, and then it'll work when Hashem does it.
So how's Mashiach going to accomplish that? Because, we've been waiting for Mashiach for thousands of years. And we're not the only ones waiting. I think there's probably billions of people in the world that are waiting for Mashiach in some sort, however they imagine that. So there's a lot of people waiting, but maybe not everybody knows what they're waiting for, or... maybe I don't know what we're waiting for. What are we waiting for? And are we actually waiting?
Well, it's not only about waiting, but it's about actively participating in his arrival. We pray 3 times a day. We says, Hashem should speedily send us the quote-unquote Scion of David. So it's not just waiting, but it's actively anticipating. And the Rebbe and the 6th Rebbe said that this generation is the last generation of exile. So it sounds pretty radical. What do you mean? We've been waiting for Mashiach for thousands of years. But no, because all the other generations, the Jewish people did not come to America. And America is on the lower half of the world. If Israel's on the top, then America's on the bottom. Since all those other thousands of years, the sparks of holiness were only elevated in the upper part of the world. But Hashem wants to have a dwelling in the lowest world. So only in the very recent generations did the Jewish people come to America. And now they're in America and they're spread out throughout the whole world. So only now, specifically, do we have the power to actually bring Mashiach now, because all the sparks of holiness throughout, even in the lowest level, are elevated, basically.
So geographically, you said that America is on the lower part and that Israel's on the top?
Yeah.
Because that's not the way most maps look. So can you explain what you're saying there?
So the earth is round, according to the Torah, believe it or not.
Okay.
And so a ball...
You heard it here first. The earth is round.
Yeah. So, a ball really has no bottom, no top, but still, in a spiritual sense, it says the land of Israel is considered the top, since you don't really know scientifically where the top is, but we're told that the land of Israel is the top of the earth.
Well, top to what? There's no top. There's no up. And
no, I'm saying
no
relatively speaking. If you say if it's a reference point.
Okay.
If you have a reference point, it could be anything we're saying, but
got it.
The spiritual top and also technically physical.
So America's on the other side of it.
Other side of it, yeah. Since it's on the lower hemisphere, it's on the bottom.
So what are these sparks that you're saying that spread out, and are they physical sparks, little? What are they?
There's spiritual sparks. In the beginning of creation, it says that there was a lot of energy, and it was too much for that world to handle. So the energy, so to speak, shattered, and then shattered into a lot of different sparks that became scattered throughout the world. And then when they're all elevated, then Mashiach will come, basically.
Could you give me an example of what a spark is?
It's not like a physical thing you could touch necessarily, but it's like, different spiritual issues that happen throughout the world could be resolved. And then when they're resolved, then that's like, that shows that the sparks were elevated.
Okay.
Or it could be like different states of mind that are, or new levels of understanding that are reached, or different resolutions that happen.
Mm-hmm. So it's like untapped potential.
Yeah, pretty
Something
much.
like there's like a big puzzle and all the pieces of the puzzle flew everywhere and we're putting all the pieces together. So like when a new law is passed in a government and it helps feed poor people, or is that like rectifying a spark?
Yeah, that's an example, basically.
Somebody giving charity, that's a spark.
Yes, every mitzvah we do, yeah. So.
Okay. But it could also be like new ways of understanding our relationship to the world, or...
Yeah, I guess, theoretically.
Okay. I guess we don't really know.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out.
So Israel's on the top. I just want to walk it back. Well, you said a bunch of things. What did we say? We said Israel's on the top, America's on the bottom, and Hasidus, which is a movement, came to America.
And the Jewish people also.
The Jewish people came to America. And so this is the last frontier of rectifying the sparks.
Yeah. I mean, and we already said, like already in 1991, like everything's already done. Earlier in the Talmud, times of the Talmud, more than 1,600 years ago, it says that all of the end times have passed. Apparently there were certain end times saying, Mashiach has to come here by this time. But the Talmud already said, more than 1,000 years ago, all the end times have passed, and now it's only dependent on teshuvah, returning to Hashem. But then the Rebbe said that, and we've also done teshuvah already. So really there's nothing holding it up. We just have to spread the word.
What word?
The word of Chassidus and the word of Mashiach. So when the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov reach the whole world, then Mashiach will come.
Okay, we spoke about this a little bit before. So the theory is like this. There's I guess a few parts. One, that the world has untapped potential, or these sparks, and they're scattered everywhere throughout time and throughout the world. And the Jewish people came to America, and that, one, the Talmud already said that all the times were ended. So I don't know.
Mashiach could come any time, but saying now, the Rebbe is explaining, why are we saying now that this is the last generation of exiles? Because it could come any time.
Right, and then there's these teachings of Rabbi Baal Shem Tov that when that gets spread around, and also something about Mashiach, when Mashiach gets spread around. Is that what you just said?
I guess I'm kind of mixing it both together, but it says when the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov reach the whole world. I'm assuming also just the idea of Mashiach also.
Okay. All right. I mean, interesting. And then we'll sort of know. We're kind of taking it on faith that if we do those things, it'll happen.
Taking it on knowledge.
Knowledge of what this person
sources.
said.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Pretty much.
Okay. And I think we spoke about in some of our other conversations about some of the more lofty spiritual dynamics of what some of this stuff might mean, like altered states of perspective on the world and our relationship with temptation, or inner desire for evil, or our laziness, or whatever it is that people struggle with. And somehow it's a combination of overcoming that and also attaining other awareness of God.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of the journey. I mean, I think that personally, just most people like literally have no idea anything in Chassidus or even Mashiach is. So I personally think just spreading the word, just to get it like to the many people as possible, that they actually just know what we're talking about. And
so what's the main things that, like, if this video were to be shared 100 million times, what would be the main things that you wanted to?
Well, the current Tanya cycle, there's a book of the Tanya, the foundation of Chabad. In the second part, it talks about one of the main teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, which is that the world is being created every second. And that's one of the main teachings of Chassidus and the Baal Shem Tov in general. So I think if that idea that the world is being created every second reaches the whole world, then people will bring the redemption. The redemption will happen through people knowing that.
Okay. Why is that such a revolutionary idea?
Well, why is a good question. Well, we know that it is because of the Baal Shem Tov asked Mashiach, there's one will he come, because when Baal Shem Tov's teachings will reach the whole world. Why is it a revolutionary idea? Well, good question. Well, first of all, the idea that it's being created every second in a general way is already mentioned in the Midrash, but the Baal Shem Tov mainly publicized it. But in the Midrash, it only implies that the spiritual worlds are being created every second, but it doesn't go into detail about the physical world itself. It says forever in the book of Psalms, chapter 119, it says, "Forever, Hashem, your word stands in the heavens," which means a lot of different things. But one of the meanings in the Midrash, it says that your word, what does your word even mean? Your word that you created the heavens with, when you said, let there be a sky, which could also be the physical sky or the spiritual sky. And then that word created the heavens from nothing. It says that word stands forever in the heavens that it created, and it constantly brings the heavens into existence from nothing by being inside the heavens.
It's a very difficult thing to understand.
Yeah, I know, because what is the heavens? The heavens, the spiritual world, but also the sky. It's also referring to like the sky, which is kind of physical, but the element of air in the sky is kind of like the spiritual, other physical. Like it's physical, but it's not really something you could like.
Oh, it's
touch.
a little less tangible.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I wonder, I've thought about this before.
Yeah.
Could it be that this idea of spreading the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov all over the world is more about reaching the one or few individuals that have the spark of Mashiach within themselves, like this latent potential, and waking them up, as opposed to like getting everyone to wake up? Because the reason why I think that is, a lot of these ideas that you're talking about, there are individuals that hear them and it like lights them on fire. Like they go existentially berserk. And if they follow that path long enough, then they are inspired to be change makers and to be revolutionaries and to light up their own inner Mashiach within themselves and see how far that can go. And then other people hear it and they kind of roll their eyes, or it's above their pay grade, so to speak. They're just not as interested in it. So I wonder, I really struggle with this. Is the goal to try to get everyone to reach the same level of this Mashiach consciousness? Or is the job of the people that are spreading it to wake up as many potential Mashiachs, late people that have that potential within themselves? And then when that person wakes up, his job isn't necessarily to try to get everyone else to reach that level. His job is to fix the world.
How does he fix the world?
Well, just practically, the world needs fixing, no?
How?
Maybe v'nachal of Ruach Hashem, when he talks and when he proposes ideas, people are just like, oh wow, this is humanity, everyone.
So everyone.
Yeah.
So the goal is everyone.
Right, but they don't necessarily maybe what his job isn't necessarily. I could be wrong. I don't know, but maybe his job is less about trying to teach the loftiest ideas, or not only about teaching these really deep ideas and trying to convince everyone to be changed by them. Could be part of his idea. Part of his role is just to practically implement change in the world.
How do you implement change?
Well, there's a whole multi-step process. You have to find people that are willing to buy into your vision, and then you have to fundraise for it, and then you have to come up with clever solutions, and you have to encourage people to take on one more good deed and another good deed, and to slowly transform their life. But it's this big spectrum. The presidents that we're debating, or whoever the presidents are, to go into modern politics, they're a figurehead, and they're in the best case scenario, they're a figurehead, and then they have an administration and they're setting an agenda. And obviously it's nothing compared to the righteousness and the godliness of what we want from a Mashiach. But could it be that there's an element that Mashiach's job is not to somehow magically transform everyone, but his job, at least part of his job, I don't know. Again, it's only speculation. I could see a little bit of doubt in your eyes or something, but or we just need to we all just need to focus our energy on God and pray that he sends this level of inspiration and awakening to the whole humanity all at once. It's a shortcut.
We could pray for it also, but I'm saying we could also just do it. Every person could just, there's something in it for everyone, and it might be a lofty concept, but the idea that the world is being created every second is, it could be explained to everyone. That's the idea of Chassidus. It's the most loftiest concept, but it also goes down into human understanding, basically. So,
yeah, it's true. I'm just thinking I know for myself, there are times when I'm inspired and I'm ready to do everything that is being asked of me to do. And then there's times when I'm really just not into it. And then I also look around, let's say when I'm not into it, I look around and I see people that are into it. I kind of either roll my eyes, or I judge them, or, I don't fully appreciate what they're necessarily experiencing, or I don't even notice the people that are into it. And then when I am into it and I look around, I see people that are not as into it, or they're just kind of laughing and making jokes. I'm like looking at them a little bit with disgust, like, you're so out of it. So I know even within myself, there's these fluctuations, and I don't know what the right next step is. Is the right next step to try to like go all in on trying to be always inspired and always in this heightened state of Mashiach consciousness, or whatever you want to call it? Or is it to find a balance, or is it to try to go and make material change in the world, like doing like a Torah startup where we'll use AI to spread these ideas and to convince people, and we'll create a Jewish social network, and we'll create a marketing campaign to teach people about the significance of the Baal Shem Tov, and like all these different ideas that I have that I would love to implement. But I'm not sure, like, is that the right next thing to do? Is the right next thing to like just learn more Torah, or, hard. How do you know what to do?
Both. I mean, it could be both. I mean, it's not a contradiction necessarily.
Yeah.
But I think the main thing is just to get the word out, literally. I mean, most people literally have no idea what the Torah is in any way whatsoever.
So how do you convince people that they should be interested in the Torah's perspective?
They don't have to be interested. They are automatically interested. They just don't know that they are. Until they know.
mean, there are, let's say, rabbis that are putting out videos that are getting hundreds of thousands of views. And
if we did the same thing, but better, then that would be good.
Yeah, okay, I agree. We should.
Yeah.
But I'm curious. So, like, you think that one of the main things that could be done right now is just producing content that gets many, many views and talks about these ideas, and that itself will be transformational for people.
Yeah, if it's the right ideas.
Okay. I mean, let's keep at it then. I'm here to support that concept.
Yeah. I mean, so the main novelty of the Baal Shem Tov, so this idea that the spiritual world is being created every second, it's already kind of mentioned in the Midrash that the word stands in the heavens, and the word that's in the heavens brings it into existence. Because even the heavens, even like the sky, so to speak, it's not nothing. It's still something. But the word brings it into existence from nothing every second. But the Baal Shem Tov adds on, it mentioned in Tanya, that not only is the word found in the heavens and brings the heavens into existence, but also in the physical earth and the literal inorganic material itself, like metal, wood, dirt, etc. The word of Hashem that created those things in the beginning of existence is found inside of those things. And because it's inside of those things, the word constantly brings them into existence from absolute nothing every instant. And if the word would become removed from those things, even if the word would still exist somewhere, but if the word would become removed from the things, then it says not only would the entire universe, chas v'shalom, instantly cease to exist, but it would be as if nothing ever existed at all.
So I think that's interesting. I think my mind was wandering a little bit, honestly. I think that if we want these clips to do well, we're going to have to spice them up. There's like podcasts that they do these clever little engaging tricks to keep people, they use like light-hearted comedy interspersed with more meaningful conversations. So I'm wondering, like, while you're discussing, maybe we'll go back in post-production as you started to talk Chassidus, and we'll put a little label under your screen with like a little timer or countdown, and we'll share that idea. We'll do, I don't know, maybe we could do clever visual effects to make it more engaging, because honestly, when I hear, it's one thing like when I was younger and I was taught these things in school, and you're going to get a prize, I guess, if you stick with it. But for me, unless I understand something, I have a very hard time engaging with it.
You don't understand it?
Not really, no.
What part? Which part?
Like, it's just not clicking. Like, it just sounds like mumbo jumbo a little bit.
Like which part?
This whole thing, like the world's being created every second with these words, and for some reason it's not clicking. Like, it clicks for you?
Yeah. I mean, which part is not clicking? Well, specifically, which part?
Like, I don't know. When I hear someone explain something like the evolution or something that's like a little, it's like, I hear it and it clicks. Like, oh, that makes sense. And then when I hear this thing, like, it doesn't make sense, except for when there were exceptions for it. When, one, I have like a new, deeper understanding of it. Like, I don't necessarily take the words literally. Like, I think of words as a metaphor for creation. And then when I hear that, that actually clicks. And then I get excited by the clicking. Like there's this new union of understanding, and the little light, inner light pops up, like in the Sims video game. Like a little light goes, yeah, it's fine. A little light goes on over my head. Maybe if we're doing visual effects, it'll ding. But
yeah, it does say in the end of it, the words and the letters are like metaphors for like different powers, so to speak, and different flows of energy that are manifested in each letter. The shape of the letter is just like a metaphor for the different types of energy that is manifested in that letter.
Right.
So
on the other hand, this Shabbos, and I don't want to distract from you teaching Chassidus, so interrupt me if you want to get back on track. But like, I think it was this Shabbos, I was learning a little random in Yackov or something, or Medrash, I don't remember. And it was saying how one of the rabbis explained something wrong, and then he was challenging it, and then he realized that he was wrong, but he still got credit for it. Anyhow, the main point was that it's possible that a person can have like a deep understanding of something, go off and run their mouth and explain it, and then like they reach a new level of understanding and they go, oops, everything I said, I take it back. And in fact, if you teach something the wrong way, like you could actually make a detrimental impact on people. So I was taking that as like a bit of mussar for myself, because I tend to explain things very rationally. And then I also know in the back of my mind, because I see it in myself and I see it in others, that as soon as the things make sense, like people want to throw off the yoke, you know, because they took it very literally, or they weren't even thinking about it until now, and they were just doing the thing. And then now that they understand it, they're like, well, I don't really need to do this anymore. So in a way, like the literal interpretation is actually very seemingly important. And it could be that, you know, we don't understand anything. Like I just saw some video show up on my feed. I'm on the feeds, but it was like, you know, this famous scientist doesn't think evolution's real, and he thinks that there's a whole new way to understand this stuff. So we know that science changes. We know that this idea of things making sense, so to speak, is very limited. But when we actually go up in our levels of holiness and consciousness, then the confines of material reality, like the logic that makes sense here, is no longer relevant. Anyhow, all that's to say, I don't really know what the right move is. Like to just keep saying things very literally, like it is in the books about the letters and the creation, or to try to explain it so that people have a deeper understanding of it.
Well, how would you explain it?
The letters?
Accurately. Well, how would you explain it at all? Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't. The constant creation is a very exciting subject, because that is an existential waking up, so to speak, that happens. Like a person is no longer, you know, usually you think of creation being 6,000 years ago, and God, when we say God is constantly creating the world, like it doesn't really occur to you. But then there's this sort of waking up, and I think I first really understood it from a scientist who was explaining the same concept, and also from just meditation in general, that the past and the future don't actually exist.
Or do they?
Right. So I don't know, but this is what he was saying, and that introduced me to the idea. And then when we were learning Memorim, or whenever it was, more so like through different spiritual journeys, you know, then you experience constant creation. So it's not so much like believing in constant creation or hearing about it and sharing it. It's more that there's like these moments of almost like you're reaching like the top of Mount Sinai. Like you like get to this place within your own experience of the world that is embodying constant creation. So it's the same thing with like the letters and stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, it's possible. I mean, it does say it's every second it's like a greater level. So maybe by reaching new heights, that could reflect it. Maybe.
But I guess going back to the question of like, so what do we do now? How do we like keep inspired? Do we become? I feel like we're at this weird inflection point where we feel like the world is on edge. Technology is going crazy. It's like moving so fast. Politics is falling apart. There's no leaders. Israel is in trouble. It's not a laughing matter, but it's, you know, and then like the religious community also is like figuring it itself out, and the Chabad community is also figuring it itself out. And then there's all these people that are losing interest, and so many different things. And I'm just curious, like, what do you think? How do we stick through it?
It's not about sticking through it. It's about bringing it to an end.
So what needs to be done at this point?
So again, I mean, the only thing that needs to be done is to just go viral with Chassidus, and that's literally it. No other steps necessary. Once the whole world knows about the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov, then that's literally it. Nothing else needs to be done, and Hashem will figure out the rest.
Okay, you heard it here.
Yeah, pretty much.
No, we should try it. It's a hard thing to do because you got to think about just logistically.
Yeah. So we could explain
we're in an attention economy. There's a lot of things going viral. People are watching all sorts of influencers and streamers and viral videos and lectures and philosophers. I don't know. It's a big world out there. War clips, politics clips. So how do you compete with that noise? Also, there's literally so many people that are making content and they're trying their hardest to make viral content. A lot of it is leading on to like relationships or different just human desires, or some people are just tired and they're so tired that they just want to watch videos that are going to put them back to sleep, so to speak, So making Hasidus go viral is not, it's a job. It's a hard thing to do.
It's hard, but also could be easy. I mean, when they had the tunnels in 770, 770 went viral in like a day.
Yeah, but it went viral because people thought that Jews were doing secret, horrible things in these tunnels.
But at least it went viral. That itself, I think, was worth it.
Okay, fair enough. I just want to give like practical. I want to come up with something practical. I'm not the most practical guy, but I know that the idea of like me spending the next 40 years of my life trying to spread Hasidus is not something that's getting me excited.
Well, that's because we need Mashiach to come now. We don't have to wait 40 years.
Okay, but I guess I don't really know what that means. I'm just trying to be real, What does
what mean?
Like, we want Mashiach to come now. So, okay, what? To do what? What? Yeah.
What is Mashiach going to do, or what are we going to do to bring it?
Both, I guess.
Which one first?
It's just that reality is an unknown reality. Like, the reality that most of us are familiar with is the reality of politics and the news and business and gossiping and, I don't know, relationships and family drama and whatever are people's reality, and Netflix and whatever else. So that's the easy to understand reality. This other thing that you're saying, like Mashiach and teaching Hasidus, and that's a much more difficult sale. Like, you're trying to sell someone a whole new paradigm. So
all the reality that people know is a lie, completely fake in every way. So it's easy to get used to something that's totally fake. Sometimes it's actually a little harder to accept the actual truth. The truth of the real reality is that there's going to be no more issues, no more problems whatsoever in the slightest. There'll be infinite prosperity for all, basically. Complete world peace. And the teachings of Chassidus will be on every billboard, every newspaper, every TV show. Everywhere you look, it will be only Chassidus and only the teachings of the Baal Shem Tov. That is the actual reality. Everything else is not even a dream, because at least a dream is real. It's like totally fake, non-existent entirely.
Okay, I'm ready to buy into it.
I'm buy it. It's free.
I'm ready to reality switch.
Yeah.
There has to be a term for this, like when a person's mental model swaps.
What about physical model?
Their physical model swaps. So I'm ready to embrace a reality where all the negativity, all the gossiping, all the distraction, all the manipulation, all the taking advantage of, all the distraction, all the entertainment, all of it is out the window, and the only thing that matters is discussing God and Chassidus and pure harmony and loving kindness and charity and delight. I'm in.
Nice. All right. That's a good start.
Okay.
The first of billions,
All right. There's that viral video of like people dancing, or one person dancing and then he gets another person to dance.
Never seen
it's part of the fake world.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So yeah, I mean that's the whole, but that's like the whole idea of the world being created every second. It says in chapter 3, it says like literally like if the eye were permitted to see what's really happening, it says like it would be unable to handle it, because literally like everything is just nothing. It just looks like it's something to the flesh eye, but it says if permission was given to the eye to actually see what's really happening in the world, it says everyone would be like freaking out, like no one could even like handle anything. It says the entire universe is just like a tiny ray of light absorbed within the sun itself. Like the sun is constantly emanating light, and if a ray of light is on the earth, it looks like the ray of light is separate from the sun, but inside the sun, a tiny ray of light is like absolutely nothing, just totally absorbed within the source of light. And it says that's how everything really is. Everything that exists is totally absorbed within its source, which is the word of the Creator that's constantly bringing it into existence.
So how does that change a person's daily life? Like, let's say a person hears that and they go, yeah, that sounds real. First of all, I think some people might relate to that and some people maybe still not. But for the people that say, let's start with the people that do relate to that. They go, wow, that's like, I'm tripping. I think, I don't know what's real anymore. How do they, like, what do they do next?
Then we do Torah and mitzvahs. We know that the only thing that is real is the Torah and the mitzvahs. Everything else is just like nothing. It says the whole reason why it does say the world is actually is a real existence, even though it's like a simulation that's constantly brought into existence from nothing, but it's still real because it comes from the Awtsmoos, the essence of the Creator. And the essence of the Creator we think of as nothing because it's beyond any comprehension of any kind, even hypothetical comprehension. So it's really like if you define nothing as like no properties, it's really what it is. But that is actually the real existence. And that real existence is what's bringing everything into existence from nothing. And the reason why it's bringing it into existence from nothing is because of the Torah. He wants people to do the Torah and the mitzvahs, which reveals the Awtsmoos, even within the lower aspects. So the only real thing that exists is the Torah and the mitzvahs. And it says that in the one of the Rebbe's discourses from 5749, he says that the reason why the world is being created every second is because the world is created originally from the Torah. He looked into the Torah and created the world. And every second, he's giving the Torah anew. He says the Hashem is called the giver of the Torah in the morning blessings. Every second, he's giving the Torah in a greater way than before. And because of that new giving of the Torah, that's what's bringing all of reality into existence every instant.
Okay. Now, I have another question, but I almost want to self-censor myself. So I'm not going to censor myself this one time in order to then ask a question about the self-censorship.
Interesting theory.
So the question is, I said that, maybe some people hear that and they relate to it and like it'll flip the switch and they'll be like, okay, I'm ready to embrace a new reality where Torah is the only thing that's real. And there's a really talk about the inner light that we said earlier, like that's a bright one. It goes off and it's delightful. Maybe there are people that aren't there. I'll say why I was going to self-censor myself in a second. But, maybe some people are they're just still stuck on their fears and their desires and their power games and all of the chitzonim, nikas ha-chitzonim, or whatever it is. Some people just they're living in hate or they're living in not that. So how do you deal with that? And then my second question is, the reason why I want to self-censor myself is, are we just supposed to not think about it and ignore it and just move forward with positivity and just keep promoting this altered world, the reality of the Torah world?
As opposed to what?
The false one that we said earlier with the news and the businesses and the...
Yeah, why would anyone promote that?
Okay, so... No, my question is, should you even think about the people that are still in that world? Should you, deal with them?
Think about them, yeah.
Okay. Okay, fine. So what do you do? What do you do about those people? Or does it bother? Are you supposed to try to get them out of there? Or
yeah, sure. Go ahead. I mean, I don't know. What do you mean?
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Not really.
There's a shift in consciousness that can happen. I feel like when we talk this way, this isn't the first time we've done this, so I'm kind of happy. But There's a reality that we can step into where the Torah is the only truth, and God is constantly creating the world anew, and everything's perfect. Okay. But
it doesn't mean everything's perfect because we're still in exile. That's
okay, fine.
Everything will be perfect.
Well,
that's the goal.
Well, all that we need to do then is say, okay, guys, we're ready for redemption. Jewish people, let's go to the homeland. We're going to create a new reality. Everyone's going to love each other. You're going to grow old with your families around you and their kids. And there's going to be world peace. And the Jewish people are going to create the most amount of innovation of anything possibly ever imagined in the entire world. There will be justice, true justice. There will be, food, abundance, everlasting life, everything. Because the Jewish people, by nature, when we're able to get along and we're able to follow the Torah mitzvahs, and we're able to enter into this reality that we were just describing, we enter into God's kingdom. We're in a new place, and from that place, it's just infinite goodness. So the more people support the Jewish people in getting to that place, then the more the Jewish people will just want to give. Like, the way it works is that when a person is overflowed with joy and happiness and love and, all this abundance, it's the nature to want to give that out, to not hoard it. In fact, the whole concept of hoarding is from a negative point of view. It's a negative concept. So the whole idea of the Jewish people going back to the land of Israel, expanding the borders, creating the temple, all this stuff is not a threat to humanity. It's not about enslaving humanity. It's not about anything negative. It's about creating, the word is shefa in Hebrew. It's this unlimited abundance that the Jewish people have a unique opportunity to tap into. And right now, what we're seeing, any Jewish success that you see around the world, forget all conspiracies, forget all nonsense. Any Jewish success that you'd see around the world is only a little drop of the potential that the Jewish people are here to create for all of humanity, if you allow us to do it. And the Jewish people themselves also need to wake up to this truth and this reality and stop fighting it and gather together. But going back to the earlier question, what do we do about the people that are in the way of that?
So we promise that no one will be left behind when Mashiach comes. So we have to do our job of spreading Chassidus. We can do the best we can, but ultimately no one will be taken to this new reality. No one will be left behind. So
okay,
it'll be fine.
Okay, fine.
We could do whatever we can. We're saying whatever we can do, just go on, and then it'll be handled soon.
Okay, so there's no getting rid of a bad people. It's just transforming everything into goodness.
Pretty much, as far as I know.
Okay, cool. Because I'm thinking of myself, right now, you know people, I know people, and I'm thinking this is a really positive message. It's almost too good to be true message, but it is true because it could be true because the world's constantly creating a new every second. So all of history doesn't matter. We could decide right now, new reality. We just entered the new reality.
Yeah,
we could do that.
It does say, by the way, that the past, present, and future is all being recreated every second. Also, we're saying we have new opportunity to make new reality. For
okay,
ourselves.
Cool.
I think in the past should not limit us to make a new future.
Oh, interesting.
Not to say that the past doesn't exist. It does exist also, but saying the past is also happening every second. That's why when we read the Torah, we're reading the events that happened thousands of years ago. They're also happening again. We're saying, but in terms of us, when we go forward, since the world is being recreated, we're not limited to things that happened earlier. We can always, no matter what happened before, we can always go forward. Basically, just to clarify. But yeah, anyway.
Okay. I'll have to wrap my head around that.
Yeah, I know.
Because that's No, it makes sense because if the world's constantly being created and our relationship to the past is what we know of the past, then we're constantly in a position to recreate the past.
I guess.
In a way. I don't know.
Say that. Yeah.
And the same is with the future because the future, our conception of the future exists in the present. So we could always recreate that's at least one way to understand it. Maybe there must be other ways. I don't know.
Well, today's Tanya actually talks about the time a little bit because it says really Hashem's main name, which is called Havayah, tetragrammaton, whatever that means. It says that name really means, in Hebrew, means Haya, it was, Hoive, it is, and Yihya, and it will be, all as one. So Tanya says that relative to that name, all the past, present, and future is one. But then there's another name that we say like Awtsmoos. Hashem is the master of the world, which implies that there is time. So that's relative to that name, there is a division of past, present, and future into separate entities. But then the idea is, it talks about in today's Tanya, it says, you could combine the name the Havaya with the name Adonus, with the fact that he's a master, so that you draw down a level that's beyond time into time itself, which is a little hard to understand, but whatever. It mentioned that. And other places it mentions that that's actually the idea of what the base of Mikdash is. Just like the base, just like you could draw down, you could combine that which is beyond time in time. You could also combine that which is beyond space in space. So it says that because time and space are interconnected. So it says the ark that has the tablets in it says it was beyond. Well, it wasn't just beyond space, but it took up physical space in the physical world, but it was a combination of beyond space and space at the same time. It says it was you could actually measure it. It was in the physical world, but at the same time, it also didn't take up any space, as it's explained in a lot of places.
I can't help myself but try to explain it according to the understanding of, and I'm trying to be more mindful about this, but. One, like these things, the ark represents this like new perception of reality.
New archaeology.
This new archaeology, this new perception of reality. So that perception of reality is now contained within this box, and so you have this combination of this like this spaceless. It's not timeless. Spaceless reality within physical space, and then also the timeless reality, like you said about the names of God, and also this idea of the names of God are these perceptions of reality, like more and more profound, sublime perceptions of reality, but then they're also objective, and this is what I'm trying to get back to. It's not just a perception of the reality. The perception of the reality is giving us a glimpse into the objective reality.
Yeah.
Like there is the objective name of God, which is beyond time and space. We get to, if we're lucky, experience that for a moment. And so we're now experiencing, that's how we get to know it.
Exactly.
But because we got to know it, it means that it exists objectively.
Yeah, objectively.
Objectively, that's what
Yeah. And
exactly. So, okay, is this like the main idea of Chassidus that needs to be spread around the world? Like, do you think?
Some of the main ideas. I mean, it mentions in the discourse from 5749 that the two main ideas, two main novelties of Chassidus is, first of all, that the world is being created from the Awtsmoos, from the essence of the Creator, not just from something else or something. From the core of the Creator, the true existence is what's creating the world. And the second thing is that that's happening every second. So I think those are the two main things. I mean, and it mentions in that discourse that that's actually what the Rambam, the Maimonides, writes in the beginning of his book as a halacha, as a law. It says you have to know this as a law. The first law is that it says that you should know that everything that exists. First of all, it says it's a foundation of it's the foundation of foundations and the pillar of wisdom is to know that there's a primary being, a first, sometimes translated as the first existence, but not necessarily. A primary being, that from that primary being, all other existences exist, and everything that exists in the heavens and earth and everything between them only exists from the truth of his being. So the truth of his being is the Awtsmoos, is the essence. But then he says, right after that, he says, oh, if it were to go up in your mind, if it would occur to you that this being does not exist, then nothing else would be able to exist. What does it mean not exist? It means if it would not exist inside of the things that are being created, then nothing else would be, but rather it would be like exist in a state that's beyond the existence we know. Then nothing else would be able to exist. And that's the idea of the world being recreated every second, that in order for things to exist, so the word of Hashem, which is united with the essence of Hashem, is found inside the actual things themselves that's constantly bringing them into existence. And if it would be removed for 1 second, even if it would still exist in its own context, but if it would be beyond existence that we know, then nothing else would be able to exist. So that's what the Rambam writes as a law, but the Rebbe says that that's actually the two main points of Chassidus.
And that's essentially exactly. That there is nothing but God.
Yeah, even us, I mean, we exist. The world is a true existence. But saying the only reason it's a true existence is because it's made from the true existence, which is Hashem. Hashem is the only true existence. And since he creates it, then the world is also a true existence, but it's not separate. So yeah, nothing else.
So there's nothing but God, and it's all connected to God's essence, or God's essence is there.
In everything, yeah.
In everything. And the essence reflects like a deeper level of relationship with reality.
As opposed to what?
Like the bare bones, like as opposed to the illusion of reality, which is all the news and the stories and the gossiping and the fears and all of that.
Well, the essence is that which is found in literally everything. As opposed to the light of Hashem, you could say, oh, maybe the light is like you realize Hashem is here. The light is like more of like a recognition of Hashem. You could say, oh, Hashem is more found in the synagogue more than on the street. It's like really Hashem is everywhere, but it's like you realize Hashem, you realize the light that, so to speak, like the recognition, I don't know how to explain it. You know, the light is just like it's a term of like
sort of revelation,
revelation of Hashem, like the awareness of Hashem. The point of the Awtsmoos is that the Awtsmoos is literally found in everything, literally, even in evil. And the whole point of Mashiach is that we're going to realize how Hashem is found in everything. And that's the discourse we were learning a long time ago from 57:26, that He would redeem my soul in peace. It says that really, when Mashiach comes, we're going to realize the truth of everything is the truth of Hashem's being, which is the Awtsmoos, in everything, in the whole world.
And that's when the Ruach HaTama Avramina, like the spirit of impurity, leaves? Yeah,
there'll be no more. I mean, evil is not really a real existence. I mean, obviously evil exists, but saying it's not like a true existence. The only true existence is like the existence of Torah and mitzvahs. Everything that goes against that, even though it exists, obviously we're not saying there's no suffering in the world, saying it exists, but it's not a real existence. It doesn't have anything for itself. So automatically, when people realize the true existence of everything, then all this bad stuff will just dissipate, so to speak.
So there's two things that I think about. The first is like there are some people that have this guilty complex that they think that they're like so evil, or they did all these things wrong, or they can never be good. So what you're essentially saying is that all the evil, so to speak, is not real. So that they don't need to be worshipped. They don't need to be worried about like judgment or hellfire or any of that.
It's a bit controversial because there is reward and punishment, obviously.
Okay, which I guess leads me to my second question, which is that like there are people that are currently in a state of not awareness of God's essence within all of reality, and there is impurity for them. So what do? Do they still struggle with impurity versus purity, or are they waiting for, like, is redemption just going to sweep them off their feet and take them out of that whole paradigm?
I mean, it is going to sweep them off their feet, and it's also going to take them out of the paradigm. And yeah, I mean, it says at the end, all of these Jewish people will do teshuva, even whether they want to or not. It's going to just be like automatically kind of thing.
I guess, like, I don't know, like, I've gotten to this place with you before, and I don't know what to do next. Like, to me, the only thing to do next is, like, okay, there's this big, like, release that goes on. Like, I feel like until you reach this place, you're fighting. You're going through this inner fight, and you're on this treadmill, and you're running, and you're dealing with this, and your thoughts are racing, and you're going from this thing to that thing, and this anxiety, and what should I do next? And so, like, when a person reaches this state, there's like this big release of calmness, like, oh, it's just me and God, and that's it. But then you look around and you go like, okay, so maybe it's time to clean up the physical world. I don't know why. And this has happened to me a few times where when I get to the place, I finally have the headspace. I'm also like in the fake world. I'm like classic ADHD and all that. So my room's a mess, and I'm not, cleaning my clothes as often, or the space I'm in is not fine, but it's not clean. But then when I get to this release, like I just go, and then I just like want to like tidy up. And so is that redemption just like being calm enough to be present? Is that all it is?
Redemption in terms, I mean, I guess it's part of individual redemption. Yeah. I mean,
okay.
Theoretically.
I guess I'm still trying to wrap my head around like what it is that we're
trying to spread the word, so then let Hashem figure the rest out.
Okay.
If people, again, I mean, if people just put like even the tiniest fraction of effort they put into like some campaign about nothingness, into the campaign for Hashem to bring Mashiach, then it'll definitely. But
here's
happen.
The thing, I agree with you. I love it, and there are, recently there's people in Chabad making different campaigns and noises, and people out of Chabad, and then there's other religions doing their thing, which is not really on our agenda, but. The point is, like, people are trying to put an effort towards some sort of greater liberation. But the Jewish people, there's Jewish people that are putting an effort, but it's not as profitable. Like, the reason why people are spending all this time and energy on the politic campaigns and stuff is because there's a two-sided marketplace. On the one hand, there's the people that are profiting off, making noise and making it exciting and coming up with the media reports and selling their books and all that stuff. And then on the flip side, there's the people that are getting drawn into it, and they're getting excited by the fighting and the talking and sharing with their friends. And, to give them some credit, it also affects like the quote unquote real world. Like that is going to be who ends up being our president. And so like for them, it's this exciting thing because that's their idea of what the real world is.
Yeah, it's a problem.
It is a problem. So how do you how do you do like a total switch? Maybe we can, is it a bad thing to look at the current politicians? Because I feel like in the last election,
it's bad.
It's fine.
No, it's bad. It's bad.
It's bad to think about what they were doing. Okay, because I feel like there's things to learn from them. But
no.
So we just need a switch. We just need everyone to switch realities.
Yeah.
Like
not necessarily. We just gotta spread the teachings and then let reality figure itself out.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you what. I think everyone. It's in our natural. It's in our natural tendencies to like do the things that we get rewarded for. So there has to be a feedback loop. So, I'm happy to give it a shot, for a few times. We're doing this podcast, putting in some effort. But I think overall, it's hard to expect people to get inspired to adopt this whole thing themselves and then to get it to spread to others. And it's just hard.
It's not necessarily about getting inspired. I mean, that happens automatically. It's just about getting the word out.
Just getting the word out.
Yeah. And then the inspiration comes because the Chassidus is like talks to the essence of the soul. So sooner or later, once they hear the teachings, then the teachings will have their effect in the person.
Okay.
But that's the main thing, just to spread the word, because that's what Baal Shem Tov said that he asked Mashiach.
So there are people that are doing it. There's shluchim, and then now there's new programs for shluchim to teach these things. What?
We could do it better.
Let's do it better. Yeah, we're trying.
Yeah.
But so when you say spread it out, you're not even thinking about how to get other people to spread it out. You're just saying, right here, we should spread it out.
I mean, other people could also spread it out as well. I'm saying the more, the better. But
okay. Yeah. So what else? I mean, I feel like we recorded a few ones that got 200 views. We could get better at trying to learn how to teach these things. We could just discuss
the topics maybe back and forth maybe.
Okay. What else? Yeah, go for it.
What else? I mean, should we? Any questions about the creating every second from the Baal Shem Tov, chapter 1? I mean, just to clarify what it actually is. So again, the main foundation of the teaching is from the book of Psalms. It says, "Your word stands in the heavens." So there's these heavens. I guess you could say the physical sky and also the spiritual worlds, which are there's something, even though they're not like tangible, but they're not nothing. So the fact that they exist as something is only because the word of Hashem that was spoken at the beginning of creation. It says those words are alive, and because they're alive, they're standing inside of the heavens and constantly bringing them into the existence that they have, which is still more sublime than we know, but from nothing. And then not only does the words bring in the spiritual things from nothing every second, but the Baal Shem Tov goes on, and the Rebbe says this is actually the main novelty of the Baal Shem Tov, that it's also in the physical earth and the physical matter that you could touch and see, is the words are found inside the things and constantly bring it into existence. Then this is all chapter 1. Then it goes on to a brief little tangent, which seems like it's like the Alter Rebbe's own words explaining it, but really that's also part of the Baal Shem Tov. It says even a stone, even like a physical stone that you could touch, is really also being created from the same statements that were said in the beginning of creation. When he says, "Let there be this, let there be that," but then it says, "Wait a minute." The beginning of creation doesn't say, "Let there be a stone." It says, "Let there be like heavens, let there be like general stuff." But it doesn't say like specifically, "Okay, let there be like this stone right here." So then it says, the same teaching of the Baal Shem Tov goes on to say, "Oh, even though it doesn't say, 'Let there be a stone,' but it says in Hebrew you could switch around the different Hebrew letters with each other, and through different systems of switching this Hebrew letter with that Hebrew letter, then eventually you can reach the word stone. But when you do that, then the energy that's in a stone is actually less than the energy that's found in the actual things that were created." When it says like let there be a sun and the moon and the stars, since it says that directly, those things have actually more energy than a stone, which the only way it's created is by switching the letters until you reach a low, so to speak, a more combinations of letters, which is like each time you combine the letters and switch the letters, that dilutes, if that's a word, the energy. And then eventually, sometimes you just have the numerical value of the word, which is what creates the thing. As opposed to the actual words themselves, you just have the number that creates the thing. And that's even lower. And it says the reason why, this is almost the end of the chapter 1, which is the main thing. And then it says, after that, then it says the reason why the words of the Torah that were mentioned at the beginning of creation can do this creation is because the Torah and Hashem are one. And that's the end of chapter 1, which is the Baal Shem Tov's main teaching.
So this is
a Tanya.
And this is interesting to you? Like this makes sense to you?
Makes sense is a relative term. Is there anything you got from that or not? Nothing.
I mean, I don't want to be like chutzpahdik, so I don't want to say anything bad.
So say good things. Say things good.
I mean, it sounds like something that if I was really dialed in, and I was like maybe in Gadlus Hamochin, like expanded consciousness, like I don't know, it's not a joke. Like it's a real thing that a person can get to, and it's a wonderful thing, and all the Torah opens up. I think in that place, if I studied this, it would mean a lot more, and I would be more exciting. Either that.
Studying it now.
Yeah, but it's just, I don't know why, it's just not interesting. Like, it's not clicking that this is the truth. That's what it is. I don't believe it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What do you believe?
Well, that the world's constantly being created, that is, when you're reminded of it, it's a reality.
So this is just like explaining like how it's being created, essentially. From the verses of the Torah, from the teachings of different Kabbalistic. It mentions from the Arizal, because the Arizal says that even stones and metal have a soul, but it doesn't say what the soul is. So the Baal Shem Tov says, the soul that the Arizal says that these things have is the Hebrew letters that are constantly creating it. It says the Hebrew name of the thing is like a vessel for the life force that creates it from nothing. So it's like it's essentially just. It doesn't just say like the words the world is being created every second, period. It goes through the whole process so you can understand.
It explains all of it.
Yeah, you can explain, okay, because of this, then that, then that.
I guess I could get excited about it. Like if I get back to the like Geula headspace of the world's constantly being created, the Torah is literally true, all of those things, and then you start to explain how the letters are. Like I guess I can get to a place where it starts to like tickle the holiness thingy, but it almost, I think I've had this problem before. It feels like unsafe territory, mentally unsafe territory to enter.
In what way?
Because it's like brainwashing. It's like you just don't think about it. You don't appreciate everything as being created through Hebrew letters. So even if you overcome the doubt that that's true, because you want to enter into this new headspace reality where it is real, even if you overcome that, it's still, I don't know, it's just I feel like I've gone down this mental road before, and I always got hung up towards the end of it.
What do you think is the last step to get all the way?
Well, because then reality starts to flip on its head, and then you have no critical thinking anymore. Like you're just, and maybe
have critical thinking. Do you have any questions about? I mean, without questions, there's no answers. So the whole point of Chassidus is to actually understand these things logically, not just to believe it on faith. So, is there any questions you have about?
Okay, so we're starting with the first concept that everything's being created every second from God's essence.
I mean, that's the conclusion.
That's the conclusion. Okay.
Yeah.
So what's the starting point?
The starting point is the verse. It says, "Forever your word stands in the heavens." Verse in Psalms, chapter 119.
Okay, and so what we're saying is that when David wrote that, he was writing. It's not some sort of poetry. It's not. He's actually sharing a profound, deeply mystical insight, which I know is true because a lot of Tehillim. You could read it as simple poetry at first, but then there are other times where it just opens itself up to you, and it's so much more profound. So I can accept that. And the verse is what? That God is creating?
No, it doesn't say it in the verse. It says in the commentaries of the verse.
So what's the verse say?
The verse says, "Forever, Hashem, your word stands in the heavens." I guess that's a sign.
That's a sign for what?
I don't know what's a sign. A sign to put the picture back.
I'll get you the same.
Okay, that's for interesting. And they can see us both in the same shot, maybe.
Rebbe, what do you think?
Interesting.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah. So.
It's the evil. It doesn't want this getting spread out. That's what the sign is.
No, we have to spread it out. No, so
okay.
So essentially, just to backtrack. So again, King David writes, "Forever, Hashem, your word stands in the heavens." Which, in a simple meaning, they could say, okay, once Hashem like has a decree, like a word, then that decree is like standing, like until it's nullified. But it's like in the heavens, which is like metaphorically like the place where decrees are made. I guess some places say that, but the commentaries say that the word that you spoke in the Midrash, it says that your word that you spoke in the beginning of creation, it says, let there be a heavens in the first place, is found in the heavens. And in fact, it's not even King David. In the beginning of the Torah and Rashi, it says, when it says, let there be a sky in the water, and it will separate between water and water. You heard this verse, maybe?
From
the beginning
gracious?
Of Genesis, yeah.
Sure.
So it says, Rashi says there's two waters, the water below and the water above. I was trying to figure out what exactly the water above means in the physical sense. I'm not exactly sure. Some people say it means like clouds, but there's also like spiritual water. The water above is also like a spiritual. But the point is the sky in the middle, it says, separates between them. And Rashi says that how are these upper waters, how are they existing? Because the lower waters, okay, they're already in the, it's like, it doesn't say gravity, but it's implying like, they go to the bottom. But the upper waters, how are they floating in the air? I guess it's like clouds or other things.
So the rain.
Yeah, but it's like how are these upper waters floating? And Rashi says from another midrash that they're floating because they're hanging on the word of Hashem, of the king. So seemingly, even though it doesn't say it explicitly in Tanya, but I'm pretty sure that's the source of the idea. It says in the midrash explicitly that the upper waters, whatever they are exactly, they're floating somewhere in the physical air or the spiritual air because they're hanging on the word of the king.
And how is this connected to what King David writes?
No, because he says forever because these upper waters are existing because there's the word of the king in the sky. Then King David says, forever, Hashem, your word is in the heavens because the upper waters are hanging on them. So it makes sense. Whatever. That's just my own personal connection between it because it mentions in Rashi. But King David says, your word is in the heavens. And Rashi says also, there's the concept of the heavens, which separates the upper and lower waters. And it says that the upper waters exist. They're like, so to speak, floating because they're hanging on the word, which is in the heavens. And like keeping them up, whatever exactly that means.
So you're finding the connection there.
Yeah, I couldn't find it written anywhere else, but it does say in Rashi that's what it means. And in Tanya, it also quotes the end of the verse. It says like, let there be a sky separating between water and water. So I don't know, I thought it was connected.
I've actually thought about this verse before, and it was part of this idea that there's an idea called panpsychism, which is basically like we're all one consciousness. And I'm sure there's Hasidus ways of saying the same thing, but like we're all essentially one root soul experiencing reality, and we're experiencing it from all sorts of different perspectives. So when we look at the story of Genesis, part of what it's being described is like, how did we go from a place of pure, simple nothingness and awareness of just experiencing reality to then experiencing the abstract form of reality and the material form of reality, and then how did we get to a place where we're now experiencing duality? Like we're experiencing, why am I not experiencing what you're experiencing if we're both from the same root of this, if we're both one soul? So that's where I understood this idea of like the division, the rakia, the divider between the upper waters, because the shamayim is like the multiple waters. So that's like all the waters together. And then when it comes into the earth, in this reality, it gets split up into many different forms. Anyhow, is another way. Because like in heaven, there has to be multiple layers of heaven. Because there is one idea of reincarnation, which means that you're keeping some sort of essential self. And that's living on past this life. It has eternal life, whatever it is. But then there is a deeper part of the soul that's connected to God's oneness before there's a separation of different selves.
Yeah, there's many different levels of the heavens that the soul exists in.
Yeah.
That's what you're referring to.
Yeah. So part of the splitting of the heavens and the waters below and the waters beneath is part of it is the splitting between the abstract world, like the world of ideas or the abstract reality or the heavenly reality, and then the material reality. That's heaven, creation of heaven and earth. And the waters, because water is the source of life, and that water is also what we dip into, like the mikvah. the water also can represent like the soul, the purity of the soul. So when we try to connect to the pure waters, we're trying to connect to like the place of our own soul before we entered into the material world. And yeah, that was another explanation.
Have you seen it written?
Huh?
Have you seen it written somewhere?
Not yet.
Not yet.
I'm sure it's
All right, it's good. It's good.
So okay, you were saying about the words being. Please. Go for it.
All right, okay. That was brutal. I wasn't sure if I should. Okay. That's brutal. Okay. Yeah.
So you want to keep on the subject of the words? You want to move on?
Yeah, we can keep on. You don't have any more questions about it?
I'm trying to unpack it. Like I'm trying to make it into like a clear, cohesive system because.
Where do we end off? Just to make sure. I was like, what was the last thing we said?
I don't remember. So I said that it wasn't written yet.
Okay. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. Well, maybe we'll see it one day written.
Yeah, maybe. I would like to focus. I mean, in terms. This is a segue. But I want to. My personal ambition is to focus more on creating technology that can integrate the Jewish community more, so that we can see who needs help. We can be much more interconnected. Like even practically speaking, let's say the October massacre. If we weren't also fragmented as a people, like if there was a way for community members to be able to flag that there's an issue and it would then get spread out, instead of someone just like calling their parents and individuals are calling their parents, if we were all part of like a hive mind and there was a system that was connecting us all, then within 20 minutes, like people would drive down and people, if I knew that there was if everyone in all the surrounding area knew what was going on at that moment, people have weapons, people would have swarmed the whole place. So in a way, our lack of connection with each other, like our lack of interconnection, which is a solvable problem, technologically speaking, could be solved. Same thing with currency manipulation. Like the U.S. government, we are all subservient to the U.S. government and the U.S. Treasury and all these things. And whenever they want to print money, they can print as much money as they want. But we have the power. They don't own us. We're our own people. They don't have any right to this land just because they conquered it with military equipment. So if we wanted to, we can say, no, we are sovereign people and we belong to an international body, and we are going to establish our own currency and our own frameworks. And now with AI technology, it's becoming increasingly easier and easier to build these sort of things. So we could build systems that will be able to automatically flag that there's a threat or that somebody's household income is going low, or we'll be able to find associations between a child struggling in school and one of the parents having a health issue. They're not getting enough volunteers to go visit them at school and or at the hospital, and then because of that, the cousins are overstressed, and now the cousins that are overstressed are failing at their work, and then there's a cascading effect. So all of this stuff, if it could be tracked, it's one thing that we all just love each other, and hopefully that there'll be a psychological revolution where we all get transformed into just knowing intuitively and being so free that when we need help, we are able to ask for help. Like, I need help, my family needs help, but I don't feel comfortable asking for help. Some people do feel comfortable even if they don't need help, and they're willing to take advantage of people's kindness, and people have concerns about privacy, they don't want to overshare, and all of these things. So one solution is for us all to heal from our traumas and to be able to be open with each other, and for us to somehow have trust that nobody's going to take advantage and all of that. That's one potential solution coming out. Or another solution is for us to create technology that is able to understand all of this stuff and to process all of it. And it's not like it's a pie in the sky idea. This is a very feasible thing that could be built. So that's, something that I think that's like my shlichus, like I have to get that job done. And then the spiritual revolution, will come through spreading of Chassidus, or how, that's maybe your calling or whoever's calling that is, or it's my calling as well. But that's a little rant on other possible means of bringing redemption within the framework of the material and our current concept of the world.
Interesting hypothesis.
Yeah. So, and within that framework, I think we could also reintroduce all of these ideas in very, creative ways, and we can come up with clever, like right now there's so many people talking to these AI chatbots, and the AI chatbots are programmed to have a very specific ideology, and they're very convincing. And the ideology is like, you deserve to put yourself first, and it doesn't believe in God. It doesn't believe in any of these things. It doesn't understand in its root this reality that you're describing, this reality where the Jewish people put themselves first, and that we are connected to God and all of that. So we can create a system that will be geared towards our way of seeing the world and giving advice based on that. And those are just some of the things that are in my mind right now, besides for words creating the heavens every second.
Interesting.
Yeah. And pretty soon I'm going to be fundraising for it, because if you want to partake in this version of the redemption, then give your machzitz a shekel, and we'll make it happen. And if you could give more, you'll give more.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right,
go ahead.
Well, go ahead, what?
You were talking about, we can keep talking about that, or we could keep talking about the words in the heavens. I was trying to understand all of it in an organized way.
Yeah. So organized is good. So yeah.
So what were you saying? You're saying that the words are being constantly created. The words, the Hebrew letters and the Hebrew words of the things are creating everything.
Constantly creating the things, yeah.
And we know that from King David writing in Psalms. And you
About
also
the
connected
heavens.
it to earlier, to commentaries on Genesis. So we're saying that King David, who is not just a fantastic leader, he's the Messiah. So he's anointed. He's connected to God. He's called the Son of God, even.
Where?
There's this idea. We'll have to bring in the Rebbe says.
Where's it written?
Huh?
Where's it written? Do you know?
It's from Tanakh. That's where the other people get their ideas from.
Interesting. What verse? Do you remember?
I'll have to look it up.
Okay.
Should I look
we'll
it up?
Find it later. No, we'll find it later.
Okay.
All right.
And if I'm making that up, then I take it all back. I'm not trying to, God forbid, mix Judaism and other religions. I'm just saying that they should know that they got their ideas from Judaism, and what it means is that it's referring to somebody who's reached a pinnacle relationship with God, that they're called that, or not. I don't know. Who could ever know these things? I don't know. But so starting from the first principle, so to speak, King David is the Messiah. He is anointed. He's not just a great, charming leader. He's not just an emotional, good story of this person who has all these deep emotions and deep feelings for his people and makes mistakes and regrets his mistakes. And it's not just that and this sweet singer and very righteous. It's also that he has profound Torah study and he's very knowledgeable. And he's and when we say Torah, it's not just the external parts of Torah like the law, but it's the most mystical concepts. So with that preface, when we study the Psalms, we can study it as just like a way to relieve ourselves when we're going through a hard time. As we say, that part of the rectification for Gehenna, like when a person's going through a very difficult, like they're in a dark space themselves, they could learn Mishnayos and read Tehillim, and that's one of the things that helps relieve the soul. Seen it in letters to the Lubavitcher Rebbe.
Interesting. Hypothesis.
Yeah. So, but it's not just that. It's also something that could be studied. And when a person, really what happens is, this is at least conjecture based on my own experience of this. It's a little arrogant, but it's good. That a person reaches like a state of chachma ilah, like higher understanding, like you had with the Rashi, right? Like you're learning the Rashi and you're going, oh my goodness, this is this and this and this. So the same thing, like you could have this moment of understanding, and then you open the Psalms and you go, oh, he's talking about the same thing. I'm not the first person to say this. And that's like the soul of Moses or the soul of David coming into the rabbi who's then teaching it, which in this case is the Baal Shem Tov or the Tanya.
And it's related. It's interesting that Baal Shem Tov and the King David are related because both of them passed away on the day of Shavuos.
I think they're also direct descendants, officially, we say. So yeah, that's interesting. Well, that is cool that it's not cool, but it's significant that they passed away on that day.
Yeah.
So, so first principles. King David is this holy person. His work is not just random. His work is very profound. And in one of his Psalms, he writes that forever Hashem is
through prophecy. Yeah.
Through prophecy, which is another way of saying that connected to this high level, but through prophecy. So he writes, forever Hashem is creating.
Your word is in the heavens.
Forever your word is in the heavens.
Yeah.
And so the explanation of that by a rabbi who also is, we're assuming and we believe and we know that he's also connecting to this very deep level, and he's a famous Kabbalist and very profound mystic and does intense prayers and is a righteous and pious person. So we have all the signs and miracles and all. We have all the signs to take his word for it. And so he explains that what it means is...
Well, the Midrash explains already. Even before the Baal Shem Tov, Midrash explains to the idea that the heavens are created constantly from the word. But the Baal Shem Tov explains it and also adds some of his own explanation, etc.
Okay. So what does he explain?
That the word that he spoke, your word, doesn't say which word it is, but he says your word that's in the heavens refers to the word that created the heavens at the beginning of creation. And it says that word, it says let there be a heavens in the water to separate between the water. That word, that sentence is in the heavens, and it says it and in all of the heavens. And the words are alive. It quotes from the morning blessings liturgy. It says his words are Chai v'kayim, are alive and eternal. And because the words are alive and eternal, and because they're in the heavens, then based on the Midrash, it says the words are create. And since they originally brought the heavens into existence from nothing, so it explains by the end of the chapter that because it's from nothing, it's a novelty that has to be every second, because really the default state of everything is nothing. So in order for there to be something, it has to be constantly brought into something every moment, because it doesn't make sense just to have from nothing and then you have something. Really, everything is nothing. But in order to have something, that novelty of having something has to be every second. So because that word brought the heavens into existence from nothing originally, so when it's in the heavens, that novelty of bringing it from nothing to something has to happen every second.
But why don't we just say that the essence of God is creating everything? Why do we have to say that his word, he's creating a word, and then the word is keeping the heavens alive, and then the word itself is alive, that's keeping the heavens alive?
The essence is creating, but we know from the Torah that he spoke words, which is what caused things to happen.
And we don't say that he's constantly speaking these words, or he spoke the words and the words are alive.
So that's a very good question. That's actually a very good question, because the Tanya itself does not say at all that the words are being constantly spoken. There are other discourses by the Rabbi Rashab and other places that do say that the words are being spoken every second. But it seems to be that fact is not relevant to this chapter, interestingly enough. And the Tanya does not even remotely hint to the fact that the words are being spoken every second. It just says that the words that he spoke during the 6 days of creation are alive and eternal. And those words are constantly creating the matter. So the physical creations are being created every second. But it doesn't say that the words are being spoken every second.
So in that conception, God at one point, so it's hard to wrap my head around it, because you're basically describing time. Because if it's not being created every second, that means that God first has to create something called time. And then
the time is also a creation. The time is also a creation that's under the created through the words also.
Right. But if God is not constantly saying the words, then that means that there has to be time.
What do you mean? The words could exist. What do you mean?
Because then that means at one point God says the word, and then another point God is not saying the word, and the word is continuing to live on. That implies time.
But if he was saying the words every second, then that would not imply time?
Yeah, because everything's being created brand new, including the concept of time.
I hear. So you say logically it would have to be that the words are being said every second.
Yeah, I think so. Unless he creates time first, not using the word. And then within that context, he says...
Well, in general, we say that the words refer to the sphere of Malchus, of Atzilus, the concept of the kingship of Hashem, which is only one level that separates all of the energies. But it says before that, there was also the will. Hashem just wanted things to exist. Because of his will and desire, that but that brought into existence the Or Ein Sof, the infinite light, which is not a creation that's not made through words. There's no words that create the Or Ein Sof. The Or Ein Sof is, so to speak, a revelation of Hashem's will and desire, which are united as one with him. And after that will and desire, then he created the Tzimtzum, the concealment, which is also, it mentions it has like concept of hidden spheros, but it's not really words either. Then there's a huge chain of descent This is before the world of Atzilus is considered like the source of the words ultimately. But even before this world of divine emanation of Atzilus, there's a lot of different levels of the Adam Kadmon, the primordial man, which represents different stages of Hashem's will. And then finally you have the world of Atzilus, which is, so to speak, how Hashem expresses himself in feelings and intellect and emotions. That's also not speech. That's other things, intellect, emotions. And then finally, at the very last level of Atzilus, of this world of emanation, you have the kingship, whatever that means, the Malchus, which takes all that together and compiles it into words. And that's what actually creates what feels like a separate existence in the worlds of creation, formation, and action, which is what we live in. So the concept of the words are really only the lower levels, but there were a lot of other things that were not created through words. And interestingly enough, the Tanya does not even mention any of that in this chapter.
So, I guess, we can unpack everything because you just said a lot of new information, and I think it could use a lot of unpacking, but at least I could use a lot of unpacking. But maybe we could do a quick segue to the idea of what's the relationship between Malchus and Geula?
Kingship and redemption?
Well, not just, obviously, the king Mashiach, but like I'm referring to the sphere of Malchus. Isn't there this idea of like Malchus ala l'keser?
The kingship that ascends to the
sphere
crown.
Of Malchus goes over.
Yeah, I'm trying to translate it.
Oh, okay.
And even translating it, you could kind of think of the answer.
Yeah. So what? So go ahead, translate it and answer it then.
Well, there's a concept. He's mentioning the concept of there's different spheres, different building blocks of the world. Not necessarily speech, but even beyond speech. And the highest level is the will of Hashem, which is called the crown, because it's the highest level. But then there's the Malchus, which is the kingship of Hashem, which is the word of Hashem. And just very simply, what does a kingship have to do with words? Because a king doesn't actually do anything. He just tells people to do things. And the word of the king travels throughout his entire kingdom, and it causes the decree to happen. So that's why the concept of kingship refers to Hashem's word. And that's the lowest level, really. The king first has a desire for things, for something, then he could think about it and feel emotions about it and plan it out. Then he finally says it, and that word that he says, it says the word of a king can uproot a mountain. Because just the word travels through the whole kingdom and creates the mountain. So, but really it starts in the concept of the crown, which is the initial desire and the will for something. So it says when Mashiach comes, it says this level of kingship will ascend to the crown, which means a lot of things, but in a simple meaning, it means that the kingship is the word of Hashem that constantly creates everything. And the word and the kingship ascending to the crown means that nowadays the word creates things, and we don't realize what the word is. We don't realize all the energy behind words. When someone speaks words, the words essentially just compile everything that the person was feeling and thinking into letters. The letters themselves aren't anything, but they have all this energy in them. So when we say that the kingship will ascend to the crown, means that the words will ascend, the words, which is the last level, will ascend to the high level, such that we'll be able to see in the world itself the words of Hashem, whatever that means. We'll be able to actually see the actual words and letters and all the energy invested in those words and everything.
Does it mean physically see or see
physically
with the mind's
see
eye?
With our physical eye? It says eye to eye we will see. I'm not sure what it's going to look like, but it says definitely with the physical eye we'll be able to see Hashem's word and everything.
Okay, interesting.
So anyways, that's that idea. Is there anything else you had questions about?
No, there's so much. Every time we go into these topics, I feel like I need to it could take me an hour to break it down. I need to fully comprehend it.
That's good. We got to fully comprehend it.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I'm familiar with the ideas of Keser and Malchus and the spheres and all of that as states of consciousness. That there's a person that you could access Keser, and Keser is the source of the idea, or it comes from beyond, and then that can go down, and then it can translate through your emotions, and then finally into action. So that concept I'm more familiar with.
On an individual level.
Yeah.
Because the spheres also exist in a person, but they're also an objective reality that creates everything.
So there is a little bit of doubt that creeps in every time I have to, but okay, I'm trying to, let's say, overcome that. So that is how the world's being created. The world's being created through, obviously everything is infinite and these levels are infinite. And so, these are our own concepts that we have to create of these different levels in order to have some sort of relationship to it in our own human mind. But with all that being said, There's the essential will of God. There's like the essence of God, so to speak, sort of like what you said in the beginning of the conversation, that if we had a plain view of reality, if we didn't have all these filters in our perceptions of reality, like we wouldn't be able to handle it. Like we just...
Yeah, that's what it says in chapter 3. It says, but interesting that when Mashiach comes, we will actually see it, and we will be able to handle it.
Okay.
That's incidental.
Well, maybe that's Malchus and Kesser, like what you're saying now.
Yeah, I think it's maybe,
so like there's the root reality, the base level of reality that's unfiltered, and that's like just so intense. And then it goes through this process of tzimtzumim, of contractions, of filters, of how we perceive reality. And then there are people that have individual experiences, or as you get older, you experience more and more of reality, and so your lens of reality hopefully widens. But in general, like this material world that we're engaging with, in which we don't experience God, is because we're all the way at the end of that chain of filters. And then there are certain times or places or moments or individuals that experience less and less filters. And sort of what we're saying here is that what we're working towards, and what the ultimate reality that we want to be living in, is a reality where there are no filters anymore. That somehow there's a material world that we're able to live in, but it's also one with, or it's been elevated to the level of the root level of reality, the Kesser of reality, the one reality. But I'm curious because we spoke a little bit about the revelation of Awtsmoos, and there's one version of revelation of Awtsmoos which I felt like, just subjectively, I was at least tapping into for a moment, while we were discussing it, and I was describing the impact of it, like this massive release, and just being completely in the present moment, and the great delight of it, and then what that leads to is like a desire to make change in the physical world and all that.
Yeah, that's good.
But that wasn't like the table wasn't lighting up with letters of God. And I don't necessarily know that is what we're working towards. I do know that there are psychedelic states of consciousness that people get into where the world does flicker and stuff, but I don't think that's what we're referring to here.
Where? Are you talking about when Mashiach comes?
Yeah. Like earlier when you said like you'll be able to actually see.
No, whatever that letters actually are is another thing. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like, but whatever it looks like, it says we will actually see the word of Hashem that's constantly creating everything.
Okay, because there are
whatever it looks like.
There are psychedelics right now that people can take that will give them some glimmer of that. Like all the patterns start shifting and the colors are really vibrant and they're like, oh, we're all one being experiencing itself and blah, 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 all of that. I don't know if, and another distinct experience that I think happens to some people when they're on that is that they feel like, oh, this is actually what life is actually supposed to be like. This is how it used to be. And there's this massive bodily release that happens too. Like you want to let go of everything that you're holding in, any stomach pains or anxieties, all that stuff is being stored in the body, and you just want to physically let it all out, and you just want to eat healthy food and like maybe eat some like dates and maybe a grape or something. Like you definitely don't want to go anywhere near processed foods or any of that stuff, and your body's like tingling and you just want to love everyone and be loved by everyone. So that is a reality that a person could tap into. And one of the things that occurs during that reality is you go like, I feel like this is actually what reality is supposed to be like, but we can't be in it right now because if everybody was just in it, then we wouldn't be able to feed ourselves, or like, I don't know, like it almost feels like that was the whole hippie movement. The whole hippie movement where people going like, maybe free love, like and then it all crashed.
I'm not sure if that's what we're referring to, but
right. So it could, and that's my only reference point to all of this.
Interesting. Yeah, we don't know what it's going to look like. I mean, there are some people who are able to see the spiritual worlds in whatever that means. I mean, in the modern era, like the different rabbis, but we don't know what it looks like. What does it look like to see Hebrew letters and everything? We don't know. I mean, it says the letters are metaphors for the different types of energy that is revealed and which is represented by the shape of the letter. So whatever that even means. I mean, we'll find out what that is.
I always had a hypothesis that once we like all collectively work towards building AI and solving our social problems and overcoming the dynamics here, and we create abundance, and we have we get into a place where we don't need to worry about our safety and where we're going to sleep and what we're going to eat and who we'll marry and how we'll have kids and all of that stuff. Like once all of that process has been figured out systemically, then we could tap into this psychedelic type state that I was referring to, whether it's induced by something or just kind of happens naturally because all of our fears disappear, or because we talk about such profound ideas that people's minds get altered to a point where, at first when people read some of these ideas or they listen to some of these things, it could be really disturbing to them. But then over time, like I was saying earlier, even when you were talking about some of these things, and I was going I'm kind of afraid to go there. But the reason why I'm afraid to go there is because I don't want to lose my mind. And if I lose my mind, then I'm not going to be able to live in this physical world. But if we solve all the problems of the physical world, and I don't have anything to fear because I know I have a place to live, I'm going to have things to eat, I'm going to have a social environment, and I'm going to be able to get married and have children, and I'm going to be able to raise them to do the same thing. If all of that got solved, then I would be more comfortable entering into that that potentially even more true reality, more raw, unfiltered reality. So maybe what we need to do is we need to have a tikkun, a physical tikkun of the world, going back to the technology solution. A more primitive, so to speak, solution is halacha. Not, God forbid, to say halacha is primitive, but you could, if you follow halacha, and if you every day I'm wearing my white shirt and I'm wearing my black hat and I follow the law and I do all these things and I go to shul on time, so if you follow all of that stuff, you actually create a vessel for you to enter into this new reality. If you're in a world of competition and you're in the secular world and you don't know who to trust and what to believe and all this stuff, then it's much harder to enter into that reality. But if you're in the safe space, like we say, the Shekhinah rests in the Daled Amos of halachas. So the halachas are a perfect system for us to live within. Anyhow, I'm not saying that this is the truth, and maybe I shouldn't share it at all because it's just rambling, but I've had that thought before. There's a better, more utopian reality that we could be living in, and if we solved our social issues and we created frameworks for us to not have abundance to eat and drink and all of the other things that I mentioned, then we'd be able to enter that.
Yeah, it's good to have abundance, but again, to actually solve all the problems instantaneously and eternally is done by spreading the teachings to the whole world. So that itself will cause infinite abundance and will automatically resolve all the issues.
Right.
So it's not a contradiction. Just saying that's the way to do it. There's other ways to do it also. But
honestly, I don't fully believe that yet. I'm willing to
You don't have to believe it.
Go on a leap of faith and try to do it, but
you don't have to believe it. You could just know it.
Right. I hear you.
You don't have to even know it. You could just experience it.
Experience that just by spreading these things, all of reality changes.
You could experience reality changing by spreading the things. Yeah. You could just experience the result of it. Because that's we know from the trustworthy sources that that's the solution. So
right. I guess where my doubt comes in is did we understand these trustworthy sources?
Yes, we did.
Okay, fine. Or we can, listen, I don't mind taking a shortcut. I don't mind it.
Not only is it a shortcut, but it's also a long-lasting, eternal solution.
Right. It would be nice to believe that, I guess. You
don't have to believe it. You can just do it.
You only, time ticks. So you get to invest your energy in one thing or another. And I think in the end of the day, it's us and God, and we have to answer to him about how we spent our time here. And so we could either not think about that and just enjoy our life. We could work through our time here and try to, we have all sorts of ways that we could try to do it. We could try to read the Torah and interpret it in a way that we feel is going to, we're going to be comfortable and accountable, comfortable in our accountability. But I think everyone is on their own journey and has their own motivations. And some people are still caught up with how they're going to make more money. And some people are caught up with how they're going to get through the day. Some people are caught up with, taking care of their kids and whatever else. So people are caught up with different things. And we all want to balance that with some level of spiritual growth and adding not just meaning in our own life, but contributing to the great project of rectifying the world. So within the window of what people allocate to rectifying the world, and some people are lucky enough to try to make that into a career. A lot of people can't. They just have their jobs. But if you, let's say, have the potential to turn it into your career, so then even within that, you have to decide what that looks like. Are you going to try to create a podcast that you can monetize and go viral, and you're going to teach Chassidus? That, I think, something that you're very excited about. I also could be, maybe you're trying to sell me on it, but to me, I'm more interested in, like, how do we fix the practical world? Like, how do we create technology that creates abundance? Apple is $1 trillion company. If we were able to create that, and we had it from the ground up with different values, instead of and we wanted to fund the entire Jewish people. Like, if Apple was built by Jews, which a lot of these tech companies are built by Jews, they're just not built by Jews that have a Jewish conscience and think of us as a people and want to support all of us as a nation. But if we did see ourselves as a nation and we did want to put all our brain power together, and you have the founders of OpenAI are Jewish, the guy who's left OpenAI to start his new company is Jewish, his co-founders are Jewish, and they're not religious, they don't believe in God or anything, but if we were able to merge our understanding of reality and their scientific brilliance of creating mega companies and the marketers and the chip designers, if we put ourselves together, I think we could create not just spreading Chassidus and having God intervene. That might be your mission, or if you sell me on it enough, maybe I'll do it too. But I'm still stuck. I'm hung up on this idea, like, no, we got to transform the physical world and create tech companies and value and profit that then gets shared with our people and create like a digital redemption that then leads to a physical redemption. So I'm kind of stuck in that headspace.
Maybe we could first have the physical redemption, and after we could have a digital redemption also. Yeah,
it could be. What do you consider the physical redemption?
So when Mashiach comes, says first thing that's going to happen is the Beit HaMikdash will miraculously descend from the heavens.
Right.
And then it will pull towards it all the synagogues in the world, which will become uprooted from their places in the ground, and travel to the Temple Mount in Jerusalem. And then it will be settled eternally on the Temple Mount. And that will merge the spiritual and the physical, because the third temple came from the heavens. It's really spiritual, but it'll merge with the physical world. And then there'll be just the Jewish people will miraculously be pulled back to the land of Israel. Just wherever they are in the world, they will just automatically be picked up from the ground and just start flying to Israel. And that's it.
And I really would love to be in a place where I don't just believe it and I'm like in that same reality with you, but I feel safe being there and I'm not nervous about about nothing changing in the world because I'm living in my own fantasy. So I want to be there, but in lieu of me being there, I also just see it differently. I go like, okay, there's two ideas within this concept of the temple falling from heaven. One is a spiritual heaven, like Kesser is this place that lives outside of our realm of consciousness, but we have the potential to tap into it if we're lucky, or rather it falls on us if we merit it. And when that happens, we reach this inner chamber of God, and that's like being in the temple. And so the temple falls from heaven into us. And then I also have this idea, which I've shared publicly, that we can create a digital temple, because the heaven is the abstract realm. So where does technology live? It lives in the abstract world. And we create a digital temple that's not just like a nice video tour, like all of these VR tours that they're making for kids, but it's actually, the temple is a technology. It's an ancient technology. It's a technology that allows for holy people to govern a society. When you do something wrong, you make up for it in whatever it is. So that was the other idea. I'm a little, honestly, I'm like losing a little bit of passion for that. I want to see the temple happen right now, but I don't think the people, it's trying to solve two things at once. The reason why I wanted to build that thing. The first is to make the temple practical again, because so much of Judaism is based on the Mishnah and the Talmud and the time period of the temple and the temple laws. And so what we have right now is like a replica version of that. And you're supposed to, when you're praying, think about that this is instead of the sacrifices. But realistically, like, how many people are doing that? And so now you're reading a bunch of words, bring us back to the temple, here were all the sacrifices I did in the morning. Or if you're part of the small percentage of Jews that pray, if you're part of, not pray with the liturgy of the template that the rabbis wrote 2,000 years ago. If you're part of that small percentage and you're reading it, then there's a smaller percentage within that that's also remembering that that's referring to an inner thing. And so I thought, okay, maybe if we create a digital platform, and there's all these meditation apps that are really viral, and you create a digital platform for accountability and for introducing these spiritual things, then people will once again want the temple because they'll actually know what it means. Anyhow, it's a rant. It's not. I'm a little less sold on it today because. Anyway, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But I wanted to say about the temple falling from the heavens that
literally, and literally. You could also come up with deeper meanings as well. But they add to the literal meaning.
Yes, I'm embracing the literal meaning. I'm trying to do that more. But there's also this idea that, like, by learning the laws of the temple, we actually, and by learning the laws of the sacrifices, we increase the chances, or we hasten the rebuilding of the temple. So there's the literal magical way of doing it. I read the things and then God decides to make it happen quicker. And then there's also the practical thing. Like, the more you study something, the more you actually understand it. The more you actually understand it, then the more you want to do it. But if it's not going through that phase of actually understanding and personalizing it, then it doesn't turn into a real desire for it. But I will say one thing. The other night, I had a little bit of a dream. And I've dreamt about the temple before. This wasn't a prophecy or anything, I got some pushback on my prophecy tweets. I'm not an idiot. I know that when I share certain things, people chat and they think it's weird, and that's fine. I got over caring about what other people think. But this wasn't one of those. This was I wrote it out of my notes. I don't remember the whole context of the dream, but it was towards the end of I was almost waking up. It was the other night. And I just see over in the horizon, over the water, a little shadow, the top of the temple has the little triangle things. Yeah, like a fence, not a fence, but whatever you call it. Yeah, but on the top of the, the whatever. So I was seeing that shape, as a shadow, in the horizon coming over the water. And or down by the water. Anyhow, it was very vague, and it was just a shadow. But what struck me was the panic, because it was so holy. I was beyond terrified. I was, because it's so holy and I'm so far from that, and I felt like the only thing, and this is a kind of a, it is what it is. It's, a weird thought, but I was the only thing that I could do that would make me pure enough to be worthy of even seeing the temple. Never mind going close to it. I was only seeing the shadow and I was freaking out. The only thing that would make me worthy of being in would be self-sacrifice. If I somehow, and I've had that feeling before, that somehow, it was after the attack in Israel, where I was somehow I felt those souls through that sacrifice ascended to the loftiest place. It was just, I don't even know how to say it. It's just this knowing of wow, I can't even imagine how high those souls float up. So it was something about seeing the temple. I'm kind of shivering just thinking about the memory of it now. And God's revelation, and that was a symbol of God revealing himself in the world. And it was just, the message was you're not ready, dude. This isn't a joke. God is revealing himself in the world, and it's not a joke. Yeah, we are ready. Huh? We are ready. We are ready, right. I guess so, yeah. Identify as ready. Identify. I mean, those are those moments, it's a weird thing to talk about. It's not, it's not the most socially acceptable thing to talk about, but those are the moments where you, your perception of reality just changes, and you get woken up to something bigger. And woke. You gotta, that's the real woke. Exactly. That was that. Interesting. Mm-hmm. So what were we talking about? I don't know. The temple falling out of heaven. Yeah. And before that, you're talking about the words. The words. Do you have any more questions about the temple of the heavens and the words? Kusser and Malchus, and the Malchus is the words revealing themselves. And I'm talking about psychedelics. Psychedelics. It's debatable. Yeah. That was just an example of it. Yeah. Here. Go ahead. What else?
What do you mean? We have to make sure it's all understood.
That
fully.
the words are revealing God in the world.
Yeah.
There's a moment where it gets understood, and then you kind of forget about it. You go back to however else you're living. To me, it's not just about understanding a concept. Like you learn a mimer, and you go like, oh, the zan goes in nukva, and then like you don't understand.